Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got my great friend Aaron Vaccaro on, the president of Singularity. He's going to guide you down, and Singularity. You know what they do? The organization really helps you entrepreneurs, you organizations, you governments, you agencies be able to understand the path for using today's technology. And a lot of you, I speak in front of audiences all the time, and a lot of you look like cats chasing laser pointers, trying to figure out what to do. And today, Aaron's going to help guide you with that. And we're really grateful for having you on the show. Welcome, Aaron.
Thanks, Anthony. It's great to be here.
We talk about people, looking like cats chasing a laser pointer. I've got to do AI. I know we got to do AI. Everything's AI today. And people are just trying to force feed it into places and spending a lot of time on spots that just aren't working, and it's causing more frustration than anything else. Let's talk about that a little bit.
That is true. AI is something we've talked about for a long time, both at Singularity and obviously as a society, dating all the way back to Terminator days. And now all of a sudden, for the vast majority of people, because of tools like ChatGPT and other consumer-facing tools, it's become a lot more tangible all of a sudden, of like, what does this technology really look and feel like, and what can it do? ChatGPT in particular created kind of this almost 15-year overnight success type of feeling, where it like came out of nowhere, and now we've got this crazy intelligent tool. But as with most things, it's had been in the works. Like OpenAI, for example, had been working on that for 10 years. It just, we hadn't seen it. But what it's created now is this crazy, people use the word hype cycle. I don't think that this is the traditional hype cycle where it's going to fall off in a couple of years and drop way off and then come back. I think this is a one-way street. But it has created this pressure, like you mentioned, that everybody has to be using AI right now. So I don't think that that's necessarily untrue. It's just that the way that we see people trying to implement is a little bit too probably top down, and maybe AI just for the sake of AI, rather than finding the best use cases and the most natural integrations into their business, depending on, your team or your business model. So,
the pressure is enormous, right? All of us have the sense that if we don't get it right now, we're going to be left behind. And part of that's true, right? Look, there is a substantial truth to, those who get it and those who, start to get, use of these tools will be able to separate from the rest of the group pretty well. Yeah. But I think you're right on in that forcing it may take you down some wrong avenues, that take you way off track, that will take you further away from that goal.
I definitely subscribe to the belief, you've probably heard it, that your job isn't going to be taken by AI. Your job might be taken by someone else who's using AI, though, because, it's going to be a while before these tools are completely capable of replicating a person with, agency and ability. But I can tell you that somebody in a particular job that's using all the tools available to them versus someone who's not is going to have a huge advantage. And so by that same token, I think the way that, we're integrating AI tools at Singularity, for example, is much more, grassroots kind of bottoms up approach, where I don't have a singular strategy for the company that says we're going to use these 5 AI tools and have them do everything. We have a more open model where our various teams, whether it's marketing or operations or, product, they've got different AI tools that help them do what they're trying to do, whether it's video generation or research or process automation. They know their business and their process the best. And so if they find a tool that says, like, hey, this is going to really speed up our workflow, or this is going to cut out 20 hours of video production, they come and tell me and said, this is what we want to use and why it helps. And then we can decide to integrate that into our system. And they're going to be the ones to best judge what tools we should be using and how much time it's going to save them or how it's going to improve their work.
A lot of the people that we're working with, the overall structure of the organization, what I notice is that there's lots of silos. And one of the best things that we can do for them is, look, each of the groups are going to have tools they need to operate efficiently as a group. And, look, I try to get my business development team off of Salesforce or any of their CRM firms platforms. It's just like pulling teeth. But what we've worked on now across the organization, for CDO group at least, is we went and said, look, we're going to become a smart sheet company. And we've integrated kind of a flat line across all the platforms and all the different parts of the organization, where it's all smart sheet driven, forms, processes, procedures. And the idea was that as what we needed for our large language model, which will be coming, it's at some point here, we'll really be able to utilize a model much more. Our teams are working on that now. Our prompters are doing some amazing stuff with them. But it was able to get each of the parts of the organization onto one source of truth, so that we weren't APIing across multiple software packages. So that was kind of the approach that we took when we looked at it. I don't know that was there a better pick than Smartsheet. Maybe there are some more.
It's a great company. That's a great Seattle. Our friends in the Seattle area, which I spent a lot of years at. That's where our investment firm is based.
Okay.
But yeah, there's it's interesting. That's the flip side of the organic kind of the bottoms up model is you don't want to have too many daisies popping up in different places that don't talk to each other, right? And so I think we're actually doing something next week at our team retreat where we're going to a couple times a year we'll get together and say, okay, what are all the different things we're using now? What have we learned? And why don't we consolidate, and so we don't have redundancy going on, and we can have some knowledge sharing across the board. So it's like, okay, marketing team has been using this tool. It's really useful for these things, but we might be able to use it across the board for other things. And let's talk about how we might implement it and share knowledge, and then come out of that with hopefully deciding, okay, we've picked a couple of new tools and, we can work them into these processes, and then we can get rid of some other stuff we've tried but isn't really working. And so making sure that you're taking the time on some cadence to be circling back and like you're saying, centralizing and sharing that knowledge so you get compounding returns across the team. You definitely don't want to have, like when I came in to this company, there was something like 50 or 60 different tools being used across the company. And it was just a crazy disaster, spending so much money and like no one's talking to each other. And so we've consolidated that way down to, Google Suite plus HubSpot plus a few other things. And that's really all we needed. But I think you got to combine the best of the knowledge sharing and single source of truth with the grassroots best understanding of how to innovate.
So when you start with an organization at Singularity and you guys go in and really help them start to achieve that, where do you start with them? What's the steps you take at starting to look at the organization, start to look at the path you're going to create for them to start to really create a vision of AI or an opportunity for AI to come in and be utilized?
Yeah. So when we work, Singularity works with organizations, mostly large, but can work all the way down to, a few people. The first thing we do is we really listen to what the customer, what the client is dealing with. There's a few categories of problems. Oftentimes it's thinking about how is technology going to disrupt my current strategy or my current product, and how can I prevent that, or how can I innovate first? Sometimes it's how do I think about my future leadership and succession planning, and how do I train leaders for the future? Sometimes it is my whole organization is just not innovative enough, and I need to shift our mindset. We've got to transform our mindsets to get my people thinking differently, thinking about the future.
Right.
And so we design programs that are usually 2, 3, 4-day immersive programs for whole companies, oftentimes for leadership teams, to really do that, to shift their mindset. And most of what we do is a mindset shift or a transformation in some way. And so we start by kind of breaking their brain a little bit in terms of understanding what's actually possible today, because most people don't understand, one, how fast technology is moving, but two, how far we've already come and what's actually possible today. I think of it, my analogy is like, if you look at the most cutting edge, like I'm a car guy, like if you look at the most cutting edge of car features that are coming out, like what you think of as the current technology in cars, like whether it's like in the car or self-driving or whatever, usually what you're thinking of as the cutting edge is 2 or 3 years old, because you haven't seen, unless you're checking out all the time, you haven't actually seen what the 2026 model has that they've announced. And so you're always a little bit behind of like what actually is already possible. It's like, that's not just a future thing. Like that's in the new Mercedes now, you know?
Right.
And so it's kind of true with all technology. And so you can break people's brains just by bringing in these experts, which all of our teachers and faculty are industry experts, academics and founders and researchers, where they're coming in off the front lines, not coming in from another classroom, and showing people these things, whether it's robotics or AI tools or what we're doing with digital biology and engineering. And these corporate leaders are going, holy crap, thought this was science fiction, but you're telling me that this is actually happening now in companies and laboratories. That gets them thinking a whole differently about like what's out there. And then we go through a deep dive on these technologies, and not just what's happening today, but what the trajectory looks like for the next 5 or 10 years, because we want people skating to where the puck is going, not just where it's at today. And then depending on their particular, issue they're trying to solve, we go through workshops around implementation and business strategy. We do rapid prototyping. We can do ethics and sort of leadership development work. And oftentimes we try to come out of these programs with really clear learning outcomes or next steps for these companies to work on. And we've got a pretty good success rate. We don't talk about our corporate clients in particular, because they're doing this important strategy work they don't want to share with the world, right? Because it's their like internal, future strategy. But we tend to have pretty amazing, results with the companies we work with in terms of how they transform their strategy and how their leadership thinks differently.
Well, do you notice when you get together with them, different levels of where the teams are at? Some have resistance, some are all in. There's some in
Yeah.
between. How do you
Mm-hmm.
start to? Because part of that need is to fish that out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you got
It's so true.
there's so many teams that are without fishing out where the resistance is and why the resistance is there, and start to support that resistance. It's almost malevolent, right?
There's there, yeah, it's funny, and there's different versions of this type of challenge actually, which present their own unique challenges. One version that we see sometimes is the leadership team comes in, and you've got the CEO or the founder, and then you've got all their lieutenants, the C-suite, and the next level of leadership, and you have this team that is wanting to be really innovative and change things and grow their business and do things differently. And sometimes you've got a CEO that's saying, no, we don't need any of this. Like our business is great. Or we're doing things perfectly fine. And so you've got this bottleneck at the top where the team is really frustrated, and they're coming to us because they're trying like, hey, can you help our CEO see what he's not seeing? Like help him see the future and let us break through and innovate. Um, and that's a challenge, because then we're focused on how do we get the leader to listen to their team and to accept that what got them here isn't going to get them there. The flip side of that is sometimes you get a CEO who's coming in and saying, my team is not thinking big enough. Like I need you to light a fire under these guys' butts and, get us into gear thinking more innovatively. Like we're going to get left behind if my team doesn't pick it up and look ahead and look at the future. And then that's fun, because you have real support and energy from the top, which is, without that bottleneck, you can move a lot faster and get more done. And so then it's just a question of how far and fast can we push the team through download of information and teaching them these deep dives on these technologies, as well as pushing them through these workshops to expand their mind and work on their mental faculty for exponential thinking.
And it's great. So as you start to fish that out, please, I've seen all kinds of different games that you can play with folks to start to fish it out, start to notice it, and then once you're there, it's just fear, right? I mean, I think I got called out. Maybe I don't know. It's good now. We're going back maybe 5 years or so. I was in a big conference and talking. I'm in a room with like 300 people, and they were talking, and the speaker was talking about AI and going to construction and robotics, and I was just so resistant at the time. And the guy calls me out in front of 300 people. He goes, he goes, and he used the F word. He goes, "You're a freaking cab driver." I go, "What?" And he goes, stand up. He goes, "You're a cab driver, aren't you?" I go, "No, no, I run a construction company." No, he goes, "You're a cab driver. You're one of those guys who invested in his shield, and you don't want to you want to convert over to Uber, right?
Yeah.
You have this investment cost, and you feel like holding on to that's doing you
Sunk
some
cost
value."
fallacy. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a sunk cost fallacy and I'm like, you know what? In the moment, it just came to such a bright light for me, right? It was like one of those things you're looking at going, I've got these systems and these places that we're doing, and it's time to just really let go of them and go, all right. And this last 5 years of doing that really just dramatically changed the opportunities myself, been able to look at and see it every time I have a resistance or say no to something or work on my team. And just notice that there's times when, as we make this evolution, your brain will squeeze a little bit. It'll
Oh yeah.
make your forehead crinkle a little bit, and you'll feel stupid again.
100%.
Yeah, first time we've got a group of, as a construction company, we've got a group of AI prompt engineers at CDO Group that are working on some technology that would blows my mind. It just blows my mind
Wow.
what we're doing today, and that all
That's
came.
amazing, because I'll tell you a fun fact. The McKinsey did a study a number of years ago that ranked like 17 different industries in terms of how innovative they were. And the construction industry was second to last,
Of
only
course,
only
yeah.
after hunting and fishing, or
Well,
hunting, fishing, agriculture.
for thousands of years, we've carried heavy crap from one spot to another spot. We've argued with each other.
Yep.
And what's amazing about it is that construction people work their asses off. They really are. It's a tough business.
100%.
Yeah. And
There's no
just not,
question about that. But also, it tells you there's huge room to innovate, right? And which means you can, I'm assuming, jump way out ahead of your competitors by implementing innovation, right? By getting ahead of it.
the digitalization of the process in this realm is going so well that there are days when I meet with them twice a day. We keep having these huge breakthroughs. They're the things that they're doing today. We here before we even see a project, I can tell you how many nails will be on a project, how many screws will be on a project,
That's
how many
amazing.
studs will be on a project. The things they're able to look at and see with clarity and vision, just blow that away. Now that starts the real data that really controls where they're going and their execution and schedules and coordination and deliveries in a way that uh, construction wasn't able to do. Most of construction up until now has been a game of hide the banana, right? No, nobody wants. Everybody thinks that if I don't tell if I don't tell my customer how much each item is, I just give them one number.
Yeah.
Somewhere I'm going to make more money. I'm going to like you guys aren't making. You're killing yourself. First of all, most of you guys are losing money. Everybody thinks that construction is such a lucrative business. I'm like, look, the industry is plagued with lies.
Yeah.
It starts off with bidding to, just think about this. If you bid a brand, like let's call it a major hamburger brand, and let's say they have 5 contractors on a project. Say there's 100 line items you're bidding on. We're at CDO getting at least 3 bids per line item. If each of those line items cost you $1,000, each of those subcontractors, spend $1,000 to bid for us, we have $300,000 in bids in just our platform. Now multiply that times 5, you've
Yeah.
got 1.5 million bucks worth of bids, and no one's won the project yet.
That's crazy.
Right? I just think that's how the business starts off. Right. And
Yeah.
some owner thinks that they're actually making out more money. I'm like, no, listen, that starts the malevolent behavior. And, today, you can see how technology changed that with Uber. You can see how technology changed that with Amazon.
Oh yeah.
the getting it out there, understanding what costs are, making them reasonable and fair.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I
is
mean, the home building, the residential home building industry, like is still clipboards, like pencil and paper, at the
yeah,
GC level. In my investment firm, we invested a number of years ago in a company out of Seattle that was trying to digitize the home building industry. And really cool idea, great team that came out of Amazon that had amazing technology. I think the industry just wasn't ready for it yet. So I think the next generation of contractors that grew up with iPads and computers are digitally native. They're going to expect things to be digitized, but we certainly have not gotten through that turnover yet. Where the average GC didn't grow up on video games. They grew up, framing and using pencil and paper on job sites. So there's certain
It
ideas. You've heard this idea that being too early is the same thing as being wrong.
yeah, that's right. But you're seeing, at least we're seeing today, the old guard is leaving. Right, we had this big lull from COVID where there was no new talent. I mean, the tech world sucked up a lot of great young talent,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody went to the tech world. And but today, with the way colleges are really getting messed up, and just the confusion and frustration and the cost of college,
Oh
people are
yeah,
realizing going to the trades is a great place to be. And
hundred
today they're
percent.
expecting that the archaic, everybody showing up on the job site yelling at each other is just not a reasonable way of living anymore. So, uh,
Wall Street's done the same thing. The
yeah,
model of screaming at the circle of yelling and the tough, Gen Z certainly doesn't want to work that way. Millennials dealt with it because we thought we had to, but the next generation is like, we're not doing
yeah,
that.
and rightfully so. And and there's actually decent money to be made in the construction world for young folks coming out today, and they can see it, and they can say, "Hey,
Hmm.
look, let's just not play the old guard game." And it's exciting. When you look at these AI prompt engineers in our team, and you look at them and go, "Wow, the wisdom that they bring." First of all, they all talk funny, right? Especially when you're an old guard like me, and you got to sit down with them. And you're like, okay, the stuff that they're driving, and together we guide them to keep them focused, and they're off on some new platform, and you got to be there for them, just like the old guard was for us when we were young,
Yeah.
and yeah,
There's an interesting insight. So I have a friend here in Sacramento who's a Singularity. I met through one of our programs. He's a Singularity alumni, and his name is Sam. He's got a construction um, firm, but he does what he calls partnering, basically mediation and working on these massive private public partnership projects to make sure that they are successful all the way through. And so he's a consultant, but his whole background is many years in major construction. And we were having dinner talking about Singularity and the work we can do with the construction industry and how challenging it is because it's difficult to get these companies to move towards AI and move in this direction. But the reason is because of something you said earlier. It's this sunk cost problem, which is really a real thing when you're talking about buying a piece of equipment that costs $50 million or $200 million, and you've got to depreciate that over 30 or 40 years or 10 or 20 years. Like, you can't think on the same cycle as how fast AI tools are being developed. You're thinking about, I just made a major investment, and so I've got to make sure I get my money's worth out of this investment. And so like construction and industrials in particular, because of the capex scale, it presents those challenges of like not being able to move as fast. And so we have to think about different ways to innovate, understanding that a single piece of equipment is probably going to last you 30 years. Um, Maybe it's digital tools like what you're working on and talking about, but there's real financial barriers that cause this that are totally reasonable. I don't think it's fair to just say, oh well, these guys are
yeah.
just dumb and slow. They're not innovating enough. It's like, well, you try spending $100 million on a piece of equipment and then telling me next year I need to do something different.
No, it's exactly what happens, and just likewise, like the roles in each of the teams. We're looking now at being able to go from, imagine it's a brand. Let's call it a major hamburger brand, right? Imagine a major hamburger brand wants to add on 100 new locations. Imagine the tools that are coming down the pipeline that will dramatically change the way that we do site selection, demographic models that, look, I started in the real estate world where we sat on corners and we had,
I think, yeah.
this how many cars went from this way and this how many
Oh yeah,
cars went from this way.
I've
And,
literally I've done that.
Yeah, that's what little young brokers did, and we sat out there and did car counts and looked at looked at traffic counts really physically. And today, and where we're going with demographic models are going to blow. I just saw some stuff that is coming down the pipeline. We'll be able to look at urban sprawl and change and weather patterns and
Hmm.
the ability to look at a demographic model beyond what our current capacity as a human will be, right? They'll be able to look at trade area analysis in such a way that it'll look at people, allergies, foods, cost, timing, the stuff that will go into a demographic model will blow you away, and they'll do it in seconds, right? They'll be able to go out and find the perfect locations in seconds. Imagine being able in the future where every property is digitized and you'll understand the synergies between the properties that are here and all the properties in the neighborhood. The competition models are will be will be that much more robust and be able to do that in seconds. And then for the moment they start to pick those sites and understand those deals and the cost, they'll be able to forecast construction costs, scheduling, permitting. Imagine doing design in seconds where you're taking that digital platform site and being able to do a site plan in seconds and designing it and permitting it all at the same time, right? Getting rid of this whole archaic permitting process that's
It's already
being held by.
possible. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just with Power, Power BI and Tableau and some of the big data tools, you can already, you know, pull those demographics and just with very simple
oh yeah,
AI models be able to plot out what you're talking about. And that's the worst. Think about it today. The tools we have today are the worst that they will ever be, meaning that,
that's right. Right.
right, this is the worst they're ever going to be, meaning that in the future, they will only ever be even better and more powerful. And so the other thing, like, so the AI models can give you incredible insights in terms of whatever data you feed them about the demographics and those things, they'll tell you some great stuff. The other thing that is coming along is this digital twin simulation technology. And so if you look at like NVIDIA or Worldwide Technologies, there's some companies that have these massive simulation models that can create a digital twin of an economy, a city, traffic flows, customers, and you can simulate all these different behavior patterns and like weather events and economics and basically like it's like playing The Sims or Roller Coaster Tycoon, but on a 1-to-1 scale with like the real world. And so we'll be able to actually build digital twins of these cities and simulate behaviors and see what happens, which is mind boggling.
Just today we open, we any marketplace you go to, there's 10 taco company taco restaurants, right? And out of the 10 of them, 50% of them are closed by year one. Another 50% of those are left are closed by year two. None of them, few of them make it to year five. Today, just like the construction world, those restaurateurs work hard. It's going to take a minute to understand that these changes of design and starting to be able to trust this analytical work is for our benefit, just because the brokers and the people that are currently invested in those in selling those leases and doing those deals are they look commission driven and they feed their families from it. So pulling them out of that strategy is going to be a difficult one to make a change there, but they're coming.
Think about as in that role though, as a broker, like the advantage, I don't think your job is going to be taken by AI, but your job is certainly going to be taken by a broker that's using AI to do all of this work for the client in a matter of seconds and come prepared with like, I've got the best site in the world for you, and here's why. Or this is a whole strategy we've got built out because I've got these tools that are telling us this is where we need to go and what's going to happen to the area and stuff. And so again, I'm guessing that as a person who's about to spend millions of dollars, you probably still want to have an actual human you've got a relationship with and you can talk to and you can trust to do deals and things. But if that human's not using all the tools available to them, then they're going to get outperformed by somebody else.
We'll see. I think there's a little bit of both. The brokerage world is a tough one. It just just like the general contracting world. I can very I can, from where I stand today, I can see a world where there is no more GCs, right? I can see where AI will design the project, AI will order the materials, AI will deliver the materials, will coordinate the construction. both combination of humans and robots, and you could see that. Now, question is for us: will that happen in my lifetime? I'm hoping that I get to retirement and I get to my kids some security. That evolution, the question becomes: how do you keep staying heads up? And just like you were talking about before, be the Wayne Gretzky, skate to where the puck is going, and continuously be part of that. I think that's what I keep telling owners is like, look, as you go through this, tighten your system and make them as simple as possible, so you have clarity of vision and understanding of your process better than anybody in the industry. Get those. What great business practices were to begin with. Know your product better than your neighbor, and then like you were talking about, now apply those tech support, that technology to it, that starts to innovate, make it faster, make it cleaner, know it even better, right? So I think they're heading down there. Now be open to, all right, look, if AI is going to take over general contracting, maybe what could we do next, right? What's a world where, imagine employees being paid at the end of every shift.
That it's funny. Something you said reminded me of a conversation I was having with my dad last week. He's a financial advisor. He owns a wealth management firm here in Sacramento, and he's trying to retire in probably the next 5 or 7 years. And we were talking about his business and about AI and being integrated into financial markets and planning and things. I'm like, Dad, how are you thinking about, like, in the future, the AI will be able to create a more sophisticated financial plan than you can in a matter of seconds. And a lot of this knowledge work that you're doing is going to be done by the computer. And so we need to rethink about your business and what does talent look like and how do you run it and all these things. And he goes, respectfully, that's not really my problem. That's the next guy's problem.
Well, that's a lot of guys. A lot of my friends in the same spot. They're like, look, unfortunately, it's coming faster than I think most understand. I think you were talking about that before, in that most folks don't understand. It's here, it's happening.
Oh yeah,
a lot
someday
of my
it's
friends,
tomorrow.
Yeah. A lot of my friends are trying to outrun it to retirement, and I'm like, look, you're on that line where you don't want to be caught and crap out too early, right?
Yeah. I mean, we should be, I encourage people not to be afraid of it. We should be excited because you still get to wake up every day and choose, you have free will and choose how to spend our time. And hopefully the way we're building our businesses and integrating tools and things is allowing us to do less of the things we don't want to do and they're not worth our time, and spend more time doing the things that we want to do, parts of our business, right? The part that my dad loves about financial advising is working with clients and talking to them and helping them feel safe and secure. He doesn't really care for building financial models. Happy to outsource that. And so hopefully we're using these tools to get to do the things that we can do as humans and that we're uniquely suited for as, beings with, with empathy and care and souls and everything. And so I'd encourage us to think of it that way and not just run scared away from the robots.
That's right. That's right. Keep it up. Look, as people are getting excited, and look, again, a lot of the entrepreneurs are on here. A lot of you are cats chasing laser pointers. Look, if you want to get on a plan, start to put that together. If you're ready to take that leap into organizing your organization to start to look at AI in a bright way, I encourage you to reach out to Aaron and get with the folks over at Singularity. Look, they've got the process for guiding you down that. If you and your organization are walking around, bewildered at what to do, get a coach. Look, they're essentially they're coaches that support you in that process of development. Aaron, if people want to get a hold of you and bring you on board to support them, and as they go through this, what's the best ways for them to catch up with you?
Yeah, you can find us at our website, su.org, or just search Singularity University. We have programs for enterprises and organizations like we talked about. We also have the executive program 3 times a year that you can apply to as an individual and come join a cohort of, 100 leaders, VP, C-level, and up type of leaders that you can come learn what I call a liberal arts education in exponential technology. And so it's a week-long boot camp that's incredibly transformative. And then we also have digital courses and podcasts and things where if you just like talking about this stuff, you can find on our site as well. So visit us at su.org.
That's great. Well, listen, ultimately grateful to have you on board. It's great to have you on the podcast. We'll make sure that folks out there get it. We'll put all of Aaron's contact stuff right down below in the description. Go look down there, guys, and get that information, and get a hold of Aaron and his group, and have folks over at Singularity come work with you. Aaron, any last minute stuff you want to tell anybody?
No, thanks for having me. And the future is up to us to build what we want to build. So let's, like I said, don't run away from it. Let's run towards it.
That's awesome. Well, Aaron, thanks for being on the show. Audience, thanks for being on. Last week, another great week of having you guys on here. We broke through 5,000 downloads, and it blew me away. We had some days I'm just overwhelmed by all of your support and all of the comments we get. If you have any comments you want to put down below today, please put them down there. It does mean the world to me and the whole crew in the background that put the podcast together. We're just so grateful for you and all the work that you guys do. And thanks for being here.